Hi, I'm Ahmed Awais, coach and founder of Agile 7. And today I'm excited to talk about Scrum Guide 2020. So it's been 25 years, so happy birthday, Scrum. And I have a personal connection to what Scrum has done for me. Scrum is 25 years old today, and they updated Scrum Guide from the previous update, which was in 2017. And there's a lot of amazing things, and I'm super excited to share what those details are. And you should care because that is very much the future of work, and that is very much something that you can benefit from. So I share 7 changes to the Scrum Guide from the previous version and what it means to you, and provide some details of my own personal experiences and my understanding and what I've seen work in the wild in real life. So going back to my own journey, 2008 is when I got introduced to Agile and more specifically Scrum through lean startups and my work in lean startups. And I've engaged with 200 plus teams at this point. And I would say that, this new change, this stepping away and softening of language and less prescriptiveness is super exciting. So without further ado, I'm going to share the 7 updates that have been made to the Scrum Guide that are really worth looking into. So the very first one is that it's less prescriptive. So it was always less prescriptive to begin with. It's purposefully, incomplete because within the theory and practice, it's the people, the intelligent people who are working on it. Especially people who work in technology, super smart people, highly capable individuals. So why is it that it's so difficult for them to work together? Because human beings, we are quite interesting, and our dynamics are quite interesting. So the benefit of keeping it intentionally incomplete is that we don't want to tell people step by step how to do it, and just flip it on the side where people can self-organize and really make the most out of it. So there's language that has been removed, there's language that has been softened. And I attended the 3-hour event, and I read the whole Scrum Guide, and I went through the details, and I just got excited over excited. So more power to them, less prescriptive, and I think that is an exciting next step. So number 2, one team. So in the past, there was an idea of creating, a product developer, product owner, and then the development team, the people who actually make the code as the developers, as separate. Now, that created this us versus them situation, which was not healthy. And at the end of the day, we want to work as one team, because if you're going down the rapids, if you're going down in this uncertain path, you don't want to create competition, because you could easily die, or like have a business death, or you could create anxiety, and that situation is not healthy. 21st century is team sport, and team sport works different from that one rock star, one person with this mega ego. And yeah, you know you can survive with that one person if it doesn't have to work with anybody else. But most likely, if you want to go further, you have to work in teams, and you work together and work in coherence, and you can create alignment and autonomy, and get away from this whole poor implementations of Scrum. So there's phrases like zombie Scrum. People have implemented this thinking what they understood, but then created these hierarchies and silos. And I've seen this myself. Many teams, even to this day, in the big corporations that I serve, I find that there are smaller teams. Okay, so these 2 people, they're the offshore team, or these 4 people, or they're working on something else. And then, or you'll have a tech lead from a group of people attend the ceremonies, the events, and the rest of the team never really comes up and shows up in those events. It's like, why are you calling yourself a team? So more cohesively, more focus, and more one project, one focus, one team, the better for all of us, and the better it is for you as an organization. Now, the next thing that I'm excited about is number 3, which is product goals. So they've introduced this idea of product goal, and you will find that if you work with high performance teams, it was probably already coming up anyway. But there's this idea of sprint goal, which you'll find as a great smell. And the high performance teams, they would have sprint goals. Well, what are we trying to accomplish this week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or whatever whatever their cadence is, whatever their sprint cycle is. And good teams would have a focused sprint goal. But now that is something that you're achieving. But what about the product goal? Well, what are you trying to achieve? What uh, customer delight are you producing? What is the purpose of this whole thing? And you'll find the people who are against Scrum or against Agile, like, we're not running a sprint, we're running a marathon. So this kind of answers the idea of the marathon. And there's other people that when I work in teams that are practicing Kanban, and you can apply Kanban as well within Scrum. They kind of work very well together. You bring this idea of katas. What is the target state? What is the product goal? What is the end desired state? And that clear vision, the clear articulation. And I think most people were doing this intuitively, who were doing it well. But now with the introduction of specific language, even people who are not doing it well, they can do something better to really align on the product goal. And the next thing is all of these new items, or well, one new item kind of existed, but now it has words with it. Product goal has a home. The product backlog is driven and formed by this idea of the product goal. The sprint goal really plays in the sprint backlog. The product goals now has a home in the product backlog, and the definition of done has a home in the product increment. So, or the sprint in the sprint increment that you're doing on each cadence. So all of them with specific holes now, they're no longer hanging around for you to figure it out. We have enough guidance, or Scrum has provided enough guidance that they can fit in properly, and even those who are starting out that can understand and start to practice it. And with practice, you're going to get better. So that's another welcome change, that these things like the product goal, the sprint goal now have a very descriptive home. Number 5, self-management. Now, self-management is probably what sets apart on who's doing well in this post-COVID world in 2020 and who's not doing well. And another thing that, we understand self-organizing, creating guardrails, but then what's better is self-management, your accountabilities, your commitments, right? So what is it that really is something that moves the organization forward and moves you forward? So what I really find fascinating is, before Agile was, I think, 25 years ago, project management was the big dog, and they would say, when project managers they'll lament that they're doing cat herding. And more recently, I've heard that phrase again, but in a different context. I heard Kevin Beer talk about socio-technical systems, which, again, nothing new, comes from how coal mines in the way past, right after World War II, how some highly performant coal miners were operating in this self-organizing, self-managing kind of manner. And so Kevin Bear uses the word of cat herding, but he says, imagine cats with machine guns and asking them to drive cars, right? So until it's self-motivated, until it's innate, until it's really aligned on the focus, on the vision and the why, it's not going to happen. Because humans, we find creative ways to hide behind things, right? And we don't want that. We want people to really shine, really bring out their unlimited potential, unlock their potential. And that cannot happen without self-management. And those companies who are doing well right now, they understand this. People, there's middle managers, and within everybody working from home, what are they doing, right? What are they supervising people? Are they above their shoulder watching them, micromanaging the house? That even possible? But the good middle managers, they've converted into coaching, and they're bringing out the best in their people through coaching and guidance and just enough information so they can pick and decide and self-manage and be self-accountable. So the new middle manager is very different, and in some cases it's not necessary, but those who are shining are the ones that have understood that it's no longer, I need to micromanage and supervise, but it's really, how can I enable the team to be better at self-management, as long as I can tell where we need to go. So that's number 5. Number 6, the why. It's always about the what and the how, but now there's specific language. And how are you running your sprint planning? What are you talking about? And why are we doing this? Because it's not just aspirational, but the way you bring the teams back to why. And when I do coaching and I'm talking to product owners and I'm talking to teams, I bring out Simon Sinek's framework, and I try to walk them through the whole process and as a workshop setting so that they can all understand why they exist. And one of my favorite stories from Lou Tice, where he went to a factory in UK, and he asked people who were like packing up bandages, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And instead of describing, "Oh, I'm just picking up bandages and putting them in wrappers and put boxing them up," they said, "Well, I'm reducing suffering in the world." Now that's a why, right? And you need to get better at, instead of talking about widgets and toolings and frameworks and software libraries, or Scrum now applies more than to software. It's been applied in oil rigs. It's been applied in nonprofits. Instead of talking about the buttons and pulleys and nuts and bolts that you care about, talk about the why. And I love that they brought this up front and center, and that does drive forward the mission and the vision that they set out. So I think I'm super hyped about this. The last change is simplification. So the last guide was 19 pages long. This one is 13 pages long, and like I believe I'm forgetting the exact quote, but if I had more time, I would have written a shorter novel. And I love that the iteration over 25 years, and this is just so beautifully written. And of course, being an agilist, I nerd out on these things, but what's wonderful is that the reduction is not at the cost of loss of fidelity. It's actually more. It brings out more and brings improvement, and it brings something that you can tap your teeth into. So there you have it. So 7 things. Number 1 is less prescriptive. Number 2 is about one team, no longer us versus them. There is no development team, delivery team, and the product team. It's one team. Number 3, it's the introduction of the product goal. Number 4, a home for all these new terminologies, and so that they're not loosey-goosey and they're tied back to physical artifacts or for physical or actual events. Number 5, and I use physical loosely. Number 5, self-management. Number 6, more emphasis on the why. And number 7, simplification. So there you have it. Love what happened today with the release of the Scrum Guide 2020. I hope that this was helpful. Spent quite a bit of time on this. Obviously, I nerded out, but this is if this is something useful, hit me up with comments. Subscribe to my newsletter on agile-7.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. The links are below in the description. And don't be afraid to say hi. Love to connect with you, and happy 25th birthday to Scrum once more. Bye bye.